In this video, I will reveal El Mago Pop's teleportation illusion. Here's a quick recap of what happened. Magician El Mago engages the audience as the host spins a wheel to select a group of spectators based on the color of their t-shirts. The wheel lands on black and requests 4 volunteers in black t-shirts to step into a transparent compartment. As the curtains cover it and are quickly removed, the 4 volunteers have seemingly teleported into the previously empty compartment. This is one of those tricks that looks like everyone was involved and the whole thing was staged, but in reality, that's not actually the case. When the magician says the participants were chosen randomly, he isn't lying at that moment. Well, not entirely. The participants' excited reactions were also real.
Are you guys randomly selected?
But remember, the devil is in the details. Now wait a minute. I know some people who think demons were used to perform this trick will take that proverb literally and say an actual devil was helping him, which isn't true. I'll now point out the details to identify this devil. We already know the color wheel spun freely and landed on black. Later, after the 4 individuals teleported, you'll notice one of the male reporters spinning the color wheel, suspicious of whether it actually produces random outcomes. On his first spin, you will see the wheel land on black. This may be a coincidence, but the wheel is not racist. After seeing it land on black, the female reporter spins it a 3rd time on her own, secretly, behind the magician's back. She seemed to have noticed something that revealed the method of the illusion. Now, before anything else, I want to clear up one assumption some people might have. These compartments were genuinely isolated from their surroundings. We can clearly see underneath and around them, so the 4 individuals could not have slipped through a trapdoor. The base they are standing on is completely hollow from below, and no mirrors could hide an escape route, especially in broad daylight. So these 4 individuals must have escaped through a wormhole. Now Neil deGrasse Tyson will explain how wormholes work. I am just kidding. The method is revealed the moment we notice something about the 4 individuals after the teleportation. The male volunteer appears bruised, with a scratch on his forehead and a bandage right above it. The female spectator also shows a bruise on her forehead. This is very suspicious, because before the teleportation, the male volunteer had no scratch or bruise on his forehead, and the female volunteer looked completely fine. Furthermore, when these 4 volunteers walked up onto the platform, they walked with their feet apart. When entering the transparent compartment, a closer look reveals a bulge right below this area. If you have not figured it out yet, these 4 individuals were the magician's team brought from Spain. The claim that the participants were chosen randomly was about 80% true. He was actually referring to the participants in the red, green, orange, yellow, and blue shirts, excluding the ones in black. The purpose of having genuinely random volunteers in the colored shirts was to make the trick more convincing, which is why those true random participants nodded to the question asked by the female reporter. But notice the reaction of the black shirt group. They barely reacted, and even after supposedly being randomly selected, when the reporter tried speaking to them, they hardly responded.
Is it your last days on Earth?
Isn't it strange that these New Yorkers suddenly do not understand or speak English? This team of his did not consist of only 4 assistants, but 8. The remaining 4, who we do not see, are biological twins of the assistants, hidden in the 2nd compartment. When these 4 assistants walked into the compartment with their feet apart, they were avoiding a cavity in the base where their hidden assistants quickly crouched after putting on their blindfolds. The blindfolds turned out to be a safety hazard. When the twins had to jump out immediately after the curtains dropped, they ended up hitting their heads multiple times during rehearsals and even in this performance. We already saw a bandage on the male assistant's forehead, which means he hit his head during rehearsals. During the actual performance, he bruised and scratched his forehead again, which is why it was not covered with a bandage. The same applies to the female assistant. The sudden shaking of the platform a few seconds before the curtain dropped, revealing the volunteers had teleported, gives away the fact that these volunteers had to quickly climb out from the cavity in the base. The spinning platform also made it dangerous and difficult for them to maintain their balance, which is another reason they hurt themselves during the process. You may be wondering how the color wheel kept stopping at black after being freely spun. This is because of how cleverly the wheel was engineered. At the top is an RGB color sensor that detects the colors passing beneath it as the wheel spins. This sensor acts as an input to a closed system, controlled by a microcontroller attached to a servo motor. Servo motors are unique because they can rotate the motor shaft to exact angles. This servo motor is connected to a motor driver that controls the motor's speed and direction. Servo motors usually require 4 to 7 volts to operate, so a battery power supply was easily hidden inside the support beam. Additionally, when the reporter manually spun the wheel, it did not damage the servo motor because it was not spun with enough force. Many servo motors are designed to tolerate a certain level of manual force without being damaged. They typically include a built-in feedback mechanism, such as a potentiometer, that keeps track of their position. Even after being manually spun, the servo can realign itself to the correct position using its feedback system. So after the reporter spun the wheel, the servo motor took over the rotation and stopped it on the desired color. The magician also used assistants from his homeland on purpose to make it harder for the audience to recognize them, since they are of a different ethnicity. He is exploiting human limitations in facial recognition. The science behind this is that human beings struggle to recognize unfamiliar faces because this ability is imperfect and depends on factors such as memory, attention, and motivation. In addition, it has been found that people recognize faces of their own ethnic group better than those of other groups. The magician takes advantage of this to switch out the twins, and it is already extremely difficult to differentiate between twins unless they are compared side by side. Behind this mask, only the truth remains till we meet again.